mummy's with the maggots now.
Death has come to your little town, Sheriff.
Well, hi there.
Hello, and welcome to Would You Die, the show where you're just in time to have your heads cut off. I'm Austin Torres.
And I'm Anneliese Petersmark.
And today we are beginning Macabre May.
Yay!
We are talking all about gothic horror, and my amazing co-host Lisa here is the one who programmed this month.
I did. I love me some gothic horror. This is one of my favorite subgenres. So I'm so excited, to dive into this month. So pumped.
A little fun fact, which you know, but I don't know if the listeners do. I've only seen one of these movies prior to this month. So, everyone listening, context, we are recording this on May 5th, affectionately known by my people as Cinco de Mayo. By your people as Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, that's true. It's also affectionately known as 2 days before this episode is set to release. This is the first time that we've cut it this close.
But next week's gonna be fucking lit.
Yeah, probably true. Producer Jeremy's having some issues technically, but it's fine. Okay,
We got our margaritas in hand. This is gonna be a great episode, guys.
it's gonna be amazing. Austin,
Yeah.
this is the first month where you would say that you have had probably the least experience, right? This is the first month where you've not watched more movies than you've watched.
Oh, definitely. In fact, I've only watched one movie this month prior to this month.
Which is kind of what I was hoping for when I programmed this. Not necessarily that you would be completely clueless or anything, but just the idea that we could kind of turn the tables.
Yeah.
I tend to do a lot of first-time watches on this podcast so far, and so I was really excited to be able to have a month where I've seen all 4 movies, and it is kind of going to be role reversal in terms of getting your initial reactions on the podcast, which I'm really excited about.
And I'm excited. I'm excited for that, too, because a lot of these movies, even though I've never seen them before, they've been around. These are, famous movies.
Yes.
And I would argue the one I've seen is the least famous.
I think that's probably true, actually. I do think it has a bit of a cult following, which obviously we'll get to when we get to that episode. But I do think that, these other ones are pretty household names.
I feel like this might be the most popular
Yeah, definitely true.
of this whole month we're talking about.
Yes, I agree.
So what movie is it?
Today we are talking about Sleepy Hollow, the 1999 version, I believe it's the year it came out.
I think you're right. I think it was 99.
Yes, it is 99. And it is starring Johnny Depp and, oh my gosh, why can't I think of her name?
Christina Ricci.
Thank you, Christina Ricci. And it really just is kind of a really good introduction and first foray into gothic horror.
I think that's a good call.
Mm-hmm.
It is directed by a filmmaker who, let's just say, is not on the top of my favorite filmmakers list or on it.
Yes. This movie was directed by Tim Burton, which is something Austin is famous for, hating Tim Burton. Oh, I'm just kidding.
Well, in my youth, in my stupid youthdity, I used to say oh, I hate Tim Burton. His movies suck.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up and maturing and becoming a functioning adult in society, I've now realized he's actually a really good filmmaker.
Just not your taste.
Not my taste, and the fact that he is so true to himself and I do not care for his vision. It's hard for me to get into any Tim Burton movie.
Fair.
But I have grown to respect his work,
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate him as a filmmaker, and the dude's a visionary. That being said, I don't really care for his movies. Beetlejuice rules.
That's fair. That's his.
I do
notable
like some of
exception.
his movies. I love Beetlejuice. I think Mars Attacks is great.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't take that in the mic. I had no clue legitimately had no idea Mars Attacks was.
And that's probably why it's one of his
Yeah.
better movies.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a very different one from.
And I
what
really
he
like
is.
Wednesday.
I think my dad showed me Mars Attacks about 13 years earlier than somebody should watch Mars Attacks. So,
Yeah, so Tim Burton has a really very distinct style. I don't feel like we need to necessarily go into it because most of you have probably seen at least the animated Tim Burton movies, you know? We're talking Corpse Bride, Frankenweenie, Nightmare Before Christmas. All of those are very specific aesthetics, and I think Sleepy Hollow falls very neatly into that aesthetic as well.
Yeah, I think you take one glance at this movie and you're like, oh, Tim Burton did this shit.
Correct. Especially if you're more familiar with his live actions like Edward Scissorhands and those ones. And what Batman did he do?
He did the first Michael Keaton Batman and the second, I believe.
Okay.
The one with Michelle Pfeiffer.
Right. Yeah. And you can tell because of the shadowings on her face.
yeah.
And then he went through that period where he just remade better movies and then put his Tim Burton stank on it. I shouldn't say it like that. But
I like that 5 minutes ago you were like, I've come to really respect him even though he's not my taste. And now you're just like, actually, I think he's a bitch and I hate him so much.
that's the power of a margarita, baby.
So, jumping into what Sleepy Hollow is about, most of you have probably heard the myth, the legend. This is a very similar story. It's just a couple differences. So this movie stars Johnny Depp as Ichabod Crane, who is in this version a New York policeman who is kind of has these fancy newfangled ideas about how police work should work, like combining science and things into police work. And the people of New York are not really having it, but they basically send him off to this insular town of Sleepy Hollow to investigate these mysterious decapitations and tell him, like, do your science over there. And then, you know, if it works, you can come back and we'll think about including it into some of our police work. And obviously, as he goes through, even though he's a very rational and reasonable and logical man, Ichabod learns that something more mysterious and sinister is afoot.
Right, something that science at this point cannot explain.
Yes.
I think that's a great way to kind of dive into that. I think this has a very interesting historical context. Where it sits in various contexts is interesting no matter how you slice it. One, from Tim Burton's filmography, Tim Burton has never been afraid to adapt others' works. I mean, Batman, obviously, which is a good adaptation. Mars Attacks is an adaptation. This is obviously an adaptation. But it's before he did, like, movie remakes.
Yes, definitely.
Like, before he did Planet of the Apes and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I'm not even going to mention one of them because I hate it so much. But
well, now you have to say it.
Alice in Wonderland.
Controversial.
That movie...
Wait, the Johnny Depp one?
Yeah, that movie gave me diarrhea.
Yeah, that movie sucks.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I didn't say it was wrong. I said it was a controversial take. I'm trying to be neutral here because usually when Austin has had a little bit less tequila in his system, he's very much like, well, I don't like to shit on what other people like.
Well, here's the thing. Tim Burton's not going to care if I take a shot at him.
Because he's not going to listen to our podcast.
He's not, and he's rich, and he's a GOAT. He's a legend.
That's fair.
Tim Burton, no matter what, who am I? I'm a nobody. Tim Burton did the thing.
Yeah.
Like, that dude's a legend. That dude has done it. So.
That's fair.
So, it's okay if I punch up a little bit.
True.
Because Tim Burton rules, and he knows it. You know.
Before we get into our historical context in terms of gothic horror and kind of what this month is all about. Obviously, you have not seen this movie before this time
I haven't.
through, But do you have what would you say your personal connection with like Tim Burton is? Obviously, we know your feelings, but what was like the first Tim Burton movie you remember cognizantly watching?
So I was kind of shitting on him as a joke a little bit because I just thought it'd be funny, but like this is gonna sound like I'm actually shitting on him, and I don't want it to. But my first like memory of a Tim Burton film is the 2001 Planet of the Apes remake.
Oh.
And that is the first movie I remember seeing and being like, movies can be bad? And so that's not a great introduction. Fair. But, you know, Tim Burton's been around since the early 90s. I was born early, mid-90s. So Tim Burton's films has always been around. I remember seeing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in theaters. I like that movie. I think Beetlejuice is great.
Yeah.
I think his Batman movies are good. But yeah, I think that Planet of the Apes was kind of my first intro to him. But in regards to Sleepy Hollow, even though I have never seen it, it's been around. I've always known of it.
Yeah.
Because it came out in 99, and a lot of my friends like that movie. So it's always kind of been around. And there are movies that I haven't mentioned that I do not have popular opinions towards. So I'm just going to save myself the hate and not mention them. Except for Alice in Wonderland. I will come for that movie. But, you know, I thought his Dumbo remake was pretty good.
I actually haven't seen the Dumbo
I liked that one. And that's a lot coming from me.
Yeah.
But, no, Tim Burton's someone who, like, yeah, I just feel like he is so himself and it don't always work for me. And sometimes when he's doing something like a Planet of the Apes, it really don't work for me. Yeah. But, yeah, with Sleepy Hollow, it's just always been around, so I've been familiar with the aesthetic of his Sleepy Hollow. And I also used to have this VHS tape. Kids, remember those? Of, like, the classic Disney cartoon? I think it was called The Legend of Sleepy Hollow with Ichabod Crane or something like that. Yes. And that Headless Horseman was scary.
He was, yeah.
So I kind of I remember that. That's my Headless Horseman. But
hashtag not my Headless Horseman.
But finally watching Sleepy Hollow, I watched Avengers Endgame recently. Okay. And all I'm thinking of is the part of Thanos where it's like, daughter, perhaps I treated you too harshly. And I'm like, Tim Burton, perhaps I treated you too harshly. I actually liked Sleepy Hollow. I had a good time with it.
So, for my personal connection, I was a very creepy child, and I was also a very precocious child. So, Gothic horror really was my bread and butter when I was in school. I watched it for the first time when I was probably 15 or 16. I loved, like, not scary movies. You know what I mean? I didn't know that this was considered a horror movie, really, even though, like, it's obvious in hindsight. But I thought that horror movies were, like, you had to be scared of them. You know what I mean? They had to include a lot of jump scares. They had to be really, like, in your face and, like, bloody and gory. So I definitely didn't associate what I was watching with horror movies. And so I loved this movie. I loved the love story in this movie, which is something that's kind of a common thread throughout a lot of Gothic horror is there's usually a lot of mention of love and romance and like companionship. And we're kind of going to talk about like the defining elements of Gothic horror as we get further in and how this movie fits into that. But yeah. Let's get into some of the historical context of Gothic horror, since this is our first Macabre May
And
episode.
This is not a subgenre I'm very well versed in.
Right. So luckily I've done a lot of research.
Hell yeah.
Mostly from my own brain because I'm a little bit mentally ill and I love Gothic horror. So Gothic horror usually reference... Sorry, Austin is losing it. I did not think what I said was that funny. I think this is also the margarita.
No, it was funny. That was funny.
Gothic horror usually references literature and movies created or set from the late 1700s to like early to mid 1800s. Some of the movies that we have this month stretch that a little bit, but they all contain like the defining elements of Gothic horror. The first defining element is the setting. Usually it features crumbling, worn down buildings, a lot of like stone that has like come down, humble buildings usually, like, you know, I mean, specifically when we're looking at this, we're looking at a lot of the townspeople's very plain, almost Puritan style dwellings. A lot of times you will see remnants of wealth, so castles that have crumbled or old abandoned mansions, stuff like that. The second defining element is the supernatural. Usually ghosts, but anything supernatural that can be associated with the dead things.
Okay.
And that leads us kind of to our themes. All Gothic horror deals with isolation and loneliness, psychological elements. So a lot of like, am I crazy? Am I imagining this? Is it all in my head? As well as death and grief, usually in connection to the loneliness. There's usually a lot of death that leads to the loneliness, and then trying to fill it with something, and then usually not being able to fill it with the thing you want to fill it with. We'll talk about it. But defining literature from the time period, because I find that this helps people kind of contextualize what I'm trying to paint the picture of in their head. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley is like quintessential Gothic horror. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. Dracula, obviously, by Bram Stoker. This one's going to seem pretty obvious, but The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. And then pretty much almost anything by Edgar Allan Poe.
Like The Raven?
The Raven is a perfect example.
What about The Cask of Amontillado?
Yes. And
why'd I go for that one? That one's so hard to say.
Because we're going to talk about that one next episode.
Oh, shit.
So spoiler alert. But if you want to refresh yourself on The Cask of Amontillado, if you haven't read it since 10th grade English class, now would be the time for next week. But yeah, so those are kind of our, yes.
So I raised my hand because I didn't want to interrupt. But
Yes, sir.
I just want to say real quick,
Yes.
I fucking love Edgar Allan Poe.
Me too. He's my favorite poet, and I really like his short stories as well.
He rules.
He does.
Okay, I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
No, you're good. But yeah, so those are kind of the vibes that we're looking at when we're looking at Gothic horror. Think
Cool.
a lot of high-necked frilly collars and like sad people, you know?
Are they sad because they have the high neck frilly collar?
Yeah, it's choking them real bad.
So not all of them are sad.
Gross.
Darth Vader would be happy in this time period.
Force choked by lace collar.
So yesterday was May the 4th.
Yes.
So my fam and I did a double feature of Rogue One and A New Hope.
That's so good.
And there's a lot of Darth Vader choking people.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's why he came to me.
That's fair. That's fair. Everybody knows Austin's two favorite holidays, May the 4th and Cinco de Mayo.
And they're just one right after the other.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
So, bringing this film into Gothic horror, I feel like this one nails every element of Gothic horror you mentioned, like just on the head.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So starting with our setting, because I feel like it's a really good place to start. First of all, even before we get to the setting, this is where, in my opinion, Tim Burton shines. The setting of Sleepy Hollow is this highly insular Dutch settlement in New York. It's a real place. Sleepy Hollow, New York is a real place that was, in fact, a Dutch settlement. And Washington Irving, who wrote the original story, is from the area and from the time period. So it's very, like, accurate to the vibes of the time. Maybe not the actual story, but the vibes of the time. And because a lot of Tim Burton's specific style is a lot of color desaturation and, you know, very, like, I'm not going to say the right words. I'm not going to say the fun, like, film technical terms, but that's what you're here for. He really paints this picture of this, like, sad, almost forgotten town, especially in conjunction with where Ichabod Crane is from in the movie, which is New York City, which is this brand new bustling town that is really coming into the New York that we all think of. It's this giant city in contrast with this very small, forgotten, almost at the time even of this play, old-fashioned town.
Yeah. This is a very cool colored film. And I don't think desaturated is the right word, but there's not a lot of colors in this film. When there are colors, it's usually like lighter blues that are basically grays.
Yes.
It's a lot of whites and a lot of blacks. Watching this film, it could have easily been a black and white film.
Yeah, truly.
So when there is red, and there are great instances of red in this film,
yes,
those reds really pop.
they do. And like I said, I think it really is masterful the way that it's done. So with the setting, this Dutch settlement in New York, it features a lot of the elements that we were talking about. A lot of these humble houses, the entire forest, because it's supposed to take place in this like late fall, very stereotypical like Halloween-y time.
Yeah. It feels like Halloween.
Yes, it does. Dead trees everywhere. Like, I don't know. Because I grew up in like a very small town, this feels like trick-or-treating to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I grew up in a very small town where like we had like a couple blocks very similar to the way that Sleepy Hollow is set up. And by the time I was trick-or-treating as a kid, climate change has changed this a little bit, but by the time I was trick-or-treating as a kid, the trees were dead. Everything was like the beautiful, vibrant fall colors were kind of gone. It was drab, you know? And that's how this feels. One thing that I think is a really kind of centerpiece to solidify this as Gothic horror is the fireplace that kind of becomes a centerpiece of the plot as we go forward.
Yes. So there are a lot of supernatural elements in this film. How does a horseman become headless?
So in this specific story, which is similar to the original, the Headless Horseman was a Hessian soldier who was not motivated by money but by bloodlust. And so historically, Hessians were German soldiers who were soldiers for hire. They were mercenaries who were brought over by the British during the Revolutionary War. They were paid, and as such, a lot of them were able to be turned very easily. So this is kind of an aside, but I'm going to tell it because it's my family history. One of my ancestors, Christian Wagner, was a Hessian soldier who was captured at the Battle of Brandywine and basically was told, okay, you can either die or you can fight for us. And so he fought for the American side for the rest of the Revolutionary War and then stayed. So that's my fun fact of the day. That's how I know what the Hessians were. But in this particular case, this Hessian soldier is not motivated by money, is not motivated by keeping his life, but he is motivated to be the best killer that he can be. And so that is how we end up in this pickle. Because
That's one way to put it.
yes. Because he becomes beheaded during battle, and somehow, we don't find out until the end of the movie, but somehow is tasked with starting to kill the villagers of Sleepy Hollow without a head.
I like in the cartoon when he has the jack-o'-lantern and it's on fire.
That's fair.
And I like that this movie kind of references that at one point.
Yes. Are you talking about at the very beginning with the scarecrow?
No, when I think it's the fake one, he's chasing Johnny Depp, and he has the pumpkin, and he like throws his pumpkin head at
Yes.
Johnny Depp.
I forgot that he did that, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
My headcanon is the Headless Horseman is, or at least the Disney cartoon version, is the inspiration for the Marvel superhero Ghost Rider.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's like true.
That's just my headcanon at least. But yeah, so the Headless Horseman is not the only supernatural character or element in this film.
Correct. Yeah. So the Headless Horseman is kind of our stereotypical, like, this is our gothic horror figure. This is our ghost, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we also have the witches. So as far as we know, as far as we know, throughout the story, we end up meeting one witch. Johnny Depp, Ichabod Crane, goes into the woods and begins his investigation trying to find out where this Headless Horseman is coming from. And this is sort of after he has witnessed the actual Headless Horseman. Up to this point, he's very like, you guys are crazy, because he comes to this town. I should back up. He comes to this town and everybody's like, Headless Horseman killing everybody. And he's like, that is insane. That's not what's happening.
You can't do stuff without your head.
Exactly. And so he goes into the woods after seeing this horrific, gruesome murder.
It was Uncle Dursley, right?
Yes, it was. And he goes with Masbeth and Katrina. He goes with his young assistant and the young maid who he is staying with her family.
Christina Ricci.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he goes into the woods and finds this crone who lives in this tree and is like, I am going to help you find the Headless Horseman. And she takes him into her like very stereotypical like witch's hut, you know, and starts to commune with the dead. And it's all very like traditional ghost stories, which is kind of an element of gothic horror that I really find comfort in. It's something we're also going to talk about next week, but a lot of the supernatural elements are exactly what you'd expect, which is kind of funny because I feel like one of the most exciting things about horror is because a lot of our horror movies come from folklore, we can subvert a lot of tropes, and that's very cool. But there's something kind of wonderful about the way that gothic horror makes the stereotype exciting. Like, this is a very stereotypical witch. The ghost is a very stereotypical ghost. They're not, like, doing anything new and fancy, but it still feels, like, compelling and exciting to watch, and you're still wondering what's going to happen. Yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do with the themes of the story and the human element of the story, which is kind of part of why I really enjoy gothic horror. Before we move on to themes, though, we have to talk about the Tree of the Dead and then the other witch. So I'm going to do Tree of the Dead first because it kind of is chronological. So the crone tells him that he needs to go to the Tree of the Dead, which is exactly what it says on the tin, basically. It's a tree, and it is dead.
Well, it's not a dead tree.
Well, it is a dead tree, but it's also the Tree of the Dead.
With dead people in it.
Exactly.
It is bloody.
It's really very fun. So the Tree of the Dead is described literally as a portal between two worlds, the living and the dead. And Johnny Depp finds the Hessian soldier's grave there, but he also, as he starts to dig into the tree, blood starts to spurt out, and it's so fun, and it's goopy. It's goopy. I
love goopy.
It's very goopy. And he like opens
I didn't think he had it in him. I didn't think he had that dog in him.
He really, yeah.
No, Tim Burton, I say that as a joke. Tim Burton loves his goop.
He really does.
Augustus Gloop? Anybody?
Goop, yeah.
Mars Attacks got some good goop in it.
It does have goop. Beetlejuice
is a very goopy movie.
Well, yeah, that's why you like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Batman movies, like, they're not
goopy.
Yeah, exactly. They're not quite goopy, but
they're on their way.
Exactly. Back to Sleepy Hollow.
Back to Sleepy Hollow. So the Tree of the Dead, as he starts to hack away at it and blood starts to spurt out and the hole gets bigger and bigger in the tree, he sees the heads that have been taken from the bodies. Because
That's right. It was the heads.
Yes.
I was thinking they were full bodies, but they were just heads.
because they have the bodies, they don't have the heads. That's
Right.
the quote. Remember, their heads were not found severed. Their heads were not found at all. So he finds the heads. The headless horseman jumps out of the tree over them.
Show off.
Yeah, and it's a really fun scene to watch.
It is a great scene,
good.
yeah.
So a lot of things happen. More people die. Everything's like
Nice.
kind of going off. And at the end, we find out about the other witch. We find out that Katrina's stepmother, who is Lady Van Tassel. It is Lady Van Tassel, right? I get the Van Tassels and then the other like fancy family.
Lady Van Tassel, more like Lady Van Meanie.
Yeah. That's not your best work. Oh, it's Van Garrett is the other ones, but yes, it's Lady Van Tassel. Lady Van Tassel turns out that she is the sister to the other witch, and that she kind of used fear and blackmail to get the elders of the town to make her the sole inheritant of Lord Van Tassel's will. And so as she eliminates one by one all of the people who are in on her plot, as well as all of the other heirs, she then finally summons the horsemen to come after Katrina, who is kind of the last loose end. The horseman then takes Lady Van Tassel as soon as Ichabod gets his head and gives it back to him, because this is all he wants. This is like Lady Van Tassel has been blackmailing him with his head. And so he is free. He abducts Lady Van Tassel and takes her to hell, takes her back with him to the land of the dead, which is really a crazy ending and kind of very fitting. But it's very fun to see the different witches and how they interact.
Yeah, so I forgot the witches were a part of this movie.
Did you really?
I did, yeah. For context, I usually like to watch these movies a day or two ahead of time, but we had some technical difficulties.
Yes.
So it's been about a little over a week.
Yeah, it definitely has been a bit of time.
And I've seen a couple movies in between.
Right. I mean, not least of all the Star Wars movies that you watched.
Boom, da-da-da-dum. But I didn't remember there were witches.
Yes.
I
There
do
are
remember
witches.
the one witch being dragged into hell.
I was going to say,
But I
they're
forgot-
like a central part of the plot.
I forgot she was a witch.
Yeah.
I just remembered she was a bitch.
Austin just dabbed. It's the big 25 and Austin just dabbed.
Jeremy liked it.
He's not even unmuting his mic for this one, you guys. That's how you know it's bad. Usually he'd have some snide comment. Not even a little bit this time.
No, it's just like Austin said, and I forgot about the witches, and then I played the whole video in my head. And what was her sister? And then it's just, so I've just been kind of doing that on a loop. But
I'm the only one who's here, apparently, to do this fucking podcast, but that's fine. So let's talk about themes in this fucking movie, I guess. No, but
Themes of being headless, am I right?
that's the theme of that's the lesson, is you should just be headless.
Hey, not having your head is pretty not dope.
Yeah, so anyway. Themes. So as we talked about before, there are basically three main themes to gothic horror movies, and this movie, as we said, is kind of the archetype for all of these themes. The first theme is loneliness, isolation, and kind of the lessons we can learn in those. And it's really interesting because the whole town in this feels lonely. As I kind of alluded to at the beginning, it really feels like a town frozen in time.
Mm-hmm.
it feels very puritanical. And in the late 1700s, which at the time, like the Puritans landed way, way earlier than this. At this point, the New York City was a bustling metropolis. This town feels like they've just freshly settled.
And we start the film in New York City, and it's a
Yes.
completely different atmosphere, a completely different aesthetic to where we're at in Sleepy Hollow.
Yes. And then also you have the characters who are feeling very lonely. Ichabod is a lonely man, not only because at the beginning he is literally isolated from the rest of the people in his profession. He is this police constable who is very passionate about it, obviously, and is this detective who wants to bring these new ideas and theories to light, but can't get anybody else on board, and everyone else kind of thinks he's ridiculous. But he also, as we learn throughout the story, is literally left lonely in the world because his father killed his mother when he was only a child.
What?
Yeah. Because, and this is like the dark part, his mom was a witch, and she was like not a dark, intense witch like the witches we see later in the story, but practiced very light magic, very whimsical.
Like Linda, the Good Witch.
Exactly, like Linda the Good Witch. See, it's not funny with your mic not on, Jeremy.
Don't whisper when you're with your mic still not on.
I've been shamed.
You should be shamed. Use your microphone. That's why we got it.
The people
That's
want to hear you,
true.
producer Jeremy.
All I said, and what was her sister? It's not funny.
Yeah, it's not funny now.
But the people want to hear it.
That's true. The people came here for me.
I mean, it seems like it. Every time we go out, we're like, so when's Jeremy getting a mic? letting me know, by the way, that you didn't listen to our last episode. So, whatever.
I even get it. I even get the people be like, hey, I don't know who producer Jeremy is, but why can't I hear him?
I'll try to be better.
You
That's all
heard
we
it here
ask for.
first.
Yeah.
So, Ichabod really finds solace in Katrina because she is also a lonely soul. She is an only child whose mother has passed away, and her father has moved on with his new wife, who is a servant who kind of came out of nowhere, which we learn at the very beginning of the movie before finding out that she's an evil witch, which is worse. But you know.
I feel like this should have been in Mommy March with all these mommy issues.
It's true. I was also thinking that when I was watching this. I was like, wow, there's a lot of mommy issues in this one. You could do a whole nother mommy march.
And there's a whole lot of daddy issues in the next one. Ayo!
True. Like so many. The other reason that the town feels lonely is because they can't trust outsiders, nor can they really trust each other. They
Right.
welcome Ichabod on the surface at the beginning when they are like, hey, you're here to help us. But then when they tell him their story about this headless horseman, and he's like, that's ridiculous, that's not what's happening, they completely dismiss him out of hand. They're like, okay, you're done, you're of no use.
Well, to be
us.
fair, he dismissed them first.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
That's probably the one time they ever opened up to an outsider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is very isolationist as we go in and go further into the movie.
And you know what happens to them? They die.
They do die because they don't talk to each other.
Mm-mm.
That's the lesson there, folks.
Talk to your
people.
homies.
Talk to people. As far as the psychological themes of this movie, Ichabod has to reconcile between his logic-minded brain and like him discovering the supernatural, and it leaves him bedridden for an entire day, as I think it would like most of us, you know. But we talked about this with The Howling as well. There's no suspension of disbelief in this movie. It's not like we have to just like, he doesn't just go, okay, I guess there's supernatural stuff now, and then moves on. His logic and reason really carry him throughout the entire movie. Even after he's accepted, okay, supernatural beings exist, it's still all about logic, because at one point he is firmly of the belief that Katrina is the one controlling the Headless Horseman and is set out to injure or harm him. And when she says, "Why can't you believe that I'm not doing this?" his response is basically, I just can't. Like, this is what my logic is telling me. This is what the facts are telling me. I want to believe you, but I can't. And it's really hard because it kind of lends more to that further isolation until almost it's too late. Luckily, he's able to discover the truth in time, but it is very tenuous for a while.
Right. There's a lot of death and grief in this movie.
There is a lot of death and grief in this movie. It starts out where Ichabod really only bonds with people who have lost one or more of their parents because he also is an orphan himself. He bonds with Katrina, who has lost, obviously, her mother. And then his assistant is young Masbeth, who is the son of the fourth victim, actually.
Did we see the fourth victim? I just remember the funeral scene.
Yeah, no, we did not see him die, I don't believe.
Or maybe he was one in like the very beginning of the film.
It might have been, but I don't think so because I think that was the first one. Either way, the fourth victim is killed, and the next day, young Masbeth comes to Ichabod, which, by the way, that's his character name. I was like, this can't be his character name. It is. Like, he doesn't have a first name. He's just young Masbeth.
What if Young is his first name?
Maybe it is. But he comes to him and he's like, "I would like to be your assistant. I want to find out what happened." And he's like, "No, you are way too young." And then he's like, "I'm the only one you got because nobody else is doing this shit with you. So you better take me up on it." And he does. And it ends up being for the best because young Masbeth basically is, again, his sole confidant throughout the entire movie other than Katrina. Even when Katrina is not... He's on the outs with Katrina because of his suspicions of her. Young Masbeth ends up being the only one that he trusts.
Yeah.
So, and then in terms of death and grief, even the Headless Horseman is really a symbol of death. He is only beheading anybody who Lady Van Tassel requests because he wants to have his head back so he can be laid back to rest. He does not want to be out and doing these things. He is wanting to go back to hell or the land of the dead or wherever he is from.
I want to push back on this point a little bit.
Okay.
He's having way too much fun.
He is having fun. I'm not saying he's not having fun, but like that
he is going way too hard. The one scene where he goes to the family, where the little boys, the little boys in that scene, that's actually I think the best scene in the film.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the fight scene with Casper Van Dien, who, did you know he's the father of Chrissy from Stranger Things?
I did not know that. That makes sense. I mean, that's
Grace Van Dien.
Grace Van Dien. Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't know that though.
Chrissy, wake up.
No.
I don't like this.
We don't have to do this. We don't have to do that. That's not necessary.
You took that so seriously.
I'm so sick of it. So sick of it.
Oh yeah, you're a teacher. You probably hear that more than anybody.
Yeah, I did. I'm a teacher who, by the way, made the mistake of dressing up as Eddie from Stranger Things for Halloween one year. That was my bad. I made a mistake. The rest of the year was torture. We don't need to do it. Anyway.
You should be the Headless Horseman this year.
How? Yes, I do agree that the Headless Horseman is having way too much fun for it to solely be...
Because, like, his backstory is, like, he's a motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, he liked killing.
For sure. But he is definitely doing her bidding because he would like his head back. So
I can see your point of him being, like, a Grim Reaper stand-in. Though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, a manifestation of this is death.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I like that reading.
That's probably a better way to put that. Yeah.
I do like that reading a lot because he has that aura to him, as the kids would say.
Yes, as the kids would say.
Now Jeremy's mad at me.
I teach middle school. The amount of times I have kids just look me dead in my eyes and go, "Is this aura?" And I have to be like, "No."
First of all, you're in 6th grade. It's never aura. I don't know what to tell you.
Can I say why the Headless Horseman has aura?
Please.
Other than the fact that, like, he's the fucking Headless Horseman. Spoiler alert. This dude's played by Christopher Walken.
I was going to say, is it because he's Christopher Walken?
Yeah. One of the greatest actors of our time.
That's so
Who
real.
doesn't even speak.
No.
I'm not sure he's credited. He's not in the opening credits, at least.
He's got to be.
He might be in but I wasn't paying attention at the end credits, if I'm being perfectly honest. I was kind of like jotting my Letterboxd review down, so I didn't forget. But
I like his teeth.
Yeah, his teeth are scary. He has like those black eyes, I think.
When was this movie made?
99?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, so yeah, I didn't know it was gonna be Christopher Walken when I put this movie on the other day.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, this is one of those genres where a lot of the movies have like surprisingly stacked casts. Like Michael Gambon is Baltus Van Tassel.
There's not one. There are 2 Sith Lords.
Yeah.
In this film.
Christopher Lee's in this fucking film.
And so is Ian McDiarmid.
Yeah.
Palpatine and Dooku.
That's real.
Now there are 2 of them. This is getting out of hand.
Forgot Ian McDiarmid was also in this fucking movie. That's crazy. Yeah, this movie's fucking stacked.
And then the one guy we don't need to talk about's in it.
I'm looking at the cast.
Johnny Depp's in this?
I'm like looking over Anneliese's shoulder, and I see no Christopher Walken. I feel lied to.
What are you talking
I don't
about?
think he's credited.
Literally right here.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. His Christopher Walken's birth name is Ronald.
Yeah.
What? Don't say that like you knew that.
I didn't know that. You're right.
He says nothing through the whole movie.
No.
That's a bummer too.
He's headless.
I understand that, but it would have been real funny if he was like, "My head is gone," and like that's the only thing he says through the whole movie.
Austin didn't hear you do that impression because he's busy, but he's gonna laugh when he's editing.
Okay. I probably will. I wish I heard what you just said because I was like looking at the one dude and it's not good.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
I just love that's gonna be a treat for him, and I'm excited for that.
What?
I said the impression's just gonna be a treat for Austin later, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Oh, Casper Van Dien is in this.
Yeah, we just talked about
Richard Griffiths.
Casper, we literally just talked about it, and you sang "Chrissy, Wake Up." I feel like I've been lied to.
I don't like this. Chris,
No, that's okay.
Johnny Depp's in this.
Crazy.
But yeah, this is a stacked cast. Is it the most stacked cast of the month?
No.
I don't think so.
Not even close. It might be the least stacked cast of the month.
But would this be the most stacked cast of Werewolf Wednesdays?
Yes. Objectively.
Well,
But
Werewolves
was it the
has
most
Lou
stacked
Diamond
cast?
Phillips.
Was it the most stacked cast of 1999?
No.
Probably
Seeing
not.
how The Matrix and Star Wars The Phantom Menace came out in those years, and that's just off the top of my head.
No.
99 is like a crazy year for movies.
It's true.
It's insane.
So anyway, death. There's a lot of it in this very stacked cast. One thing that I wanted to do, because 3 out of the 4 movies that we are doing this month are adaptations of either books or, in this case, a short story, a legend.
And Disney cartoon.
And Disney cartoon. I was hoping to talk about the differences between the movie and then whatever its source material are. Not in detail, just like a couple main
Homie.
points.
You didn't tell me I had reading to do.
You don't. I did the research. So one of the big differences between the movie and the original legend, which was written by Washington Irving, is that Ichabod Crane is not a police officer in the original. He's a school teacher, and he gets kidnapped by the Headless Horseman. So it's very much not the same. He does not have the same know-how. And it is not outright stated, and therefore it has been left to interpretation, but it is heavily implied that it may have been Brom Bones who was the Headless Horseman in the original text. Which, if you don't remember who Brom is, because again, it's been a while since you watched the movie, Brom is Katrina's best beloved, shall we say. He is the one who she is kind of not quite officially betrothed to, but it's implied that he is going to be...
Is that Casper Van Dien?
I believe so. I can't remember. But he is, yes, romantically linked to her, and he is the one who in the movie gets in the way and saves Ichabod from the Headless Horseman, and is the only non-target to die, I believe.
Yeah, because he tries to interfere, and then he's not, as a result, he's not beheaded. He's bisected.
Exactly.
And I was like, Tim Burton, I didn't know you had that dog in you. I respected it.
Yeah, so Brom is, and Ichabod says this, he was like, he wouldn't have gotten killed if it weren't for him trying to intervene. So those are the big differences between the movie and the legend. In the movie, Brom tends to be kind of a good guy. He's like, kind of Ichabod's romantic rival for Katrina, but even so, not really. And he saves him, whereas in the legend, it's, again, heavily implied that he might be the Headless Horseman. So, on to how this movie has impacted society. We've already kind of hit Tim Burton and how you feel about him, but as you've already stated, there's no denying that Tim Burton has really changed the culture around film, and specifically horror film. I would say specifically around movies, I don't want to say kids movies, but movies geared towards younger people.
I think he does a good job at making gateway horror movies.
Yes.
So people growing up who like Beetlejuice and Sleepy Hollow. And Sleepy Hollow is actually really bloody. So I don't know how many kids are watching this particular one, but...
No, but this is exactly what I was saying to you earlier, is that I
could see a kid getting scared of this one, and I can see why it put you on your path to liking horror.
Yes.
Even some of his Batman stuff, I can see kind of taking someone that direction. Some of the stuff in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which is kind of a slasher movie if you
Terrifying.
just look at it and the bare plot of it. Kids getting picked off one by one by a maniacal madman.
Yes.
Am I talking about Halloween or am I talking about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Let's be real.
True. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that gateway horror is an absolutely perfect way to put that, because that is exactly where Tim Burton kind of falls in this cultural zeitgeist. I say zeitgeist a lot on this podcast. I'm really sorry about that. That's a really annoying habit that I have. Anyway, as far as the original story of Sleepy Hollow, this was the first widespread American legend, which I don't think is talked about enough, because I think that's really important to the cultural identity of the United States.
So it's older than Johnny Appleseed?
Around the same time, I believe. Johnny Appleseed.
Or,
I wonder if they knew each other.
What's his name?
No, it would have been...
Who am I thinking of? The guy who... He's the guy... What's his name? He,
John Henry?
Who can't get beat by no machine?
Yeah.
How did you know exactly who I was thinking?
Yeah.
I
So...
was thinking
known me
Paul
for too
Bunyan.
long.
That's
So
what I had in my
Johnny
head.
Appleseed is around the same time as Sleepy Hollow.
Okay.
But John Henry and Paul Bunyan and everything, those were more later as we started to colonize west.
Yeah, go
you know
west.
What I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
John Henry's the one who was
On the
building
railroad.
the railroad, right?
Yeah. Paul
So-
Bunyan's very close to the state of Michigan. Michigan's not an original colony.
Yes. So Sleepy Hollow and Johnny Appleseed as well are really our first American legends. And I think that's really important. I'm going to shout out another podcast that I listen to that I really admire. It is called Spirits Podcast. I really recommend it. They do a lot of dives into folklore and legends around the world. But one of the things that they talk about a lot is the way that legends form identity and form culture. And realistically, I think Sleepy Hollow is a perfect example of that. The New England culture and aesthetic is so informed by its Puritan roots. You know what I mean? Like, when we think New England, especially in the fall, we think Sleepy Hollow. We think
definitely
Salem witch trials. We think, we think a lot of those things. I mean, we think even like the first Thanksgiving, these different like folklore and legends that really lend themselves to the origins of America, because that's, where we first settled, was on the East Coast. I think really paved the way for the rest of American mythology. And obviously America's not a monolith, and we all have our own local legends. Like, I think probably the most famous Michigan local legend is Dogman. But yeah,
I'm not challenging it, but I'm kind of challenging it.
okay.
Over Paul Bunyan?
Paul Bunyan's not from Michigan.
Is he not?
No.
No, he definitely is.
No, he's not.
Paul Bunyan is like the story. Like, Paul Bunyan is often credited with like how Michigan's shape was formed.
We have a whole ass like.
There's like a whole story about it.
No,
we have
it's
a whole
like
ass.
the Great Lakes, but like Wisconsin, Minnesota Great Lakes, not here.
No, he was like he dropped his mitten. Was that not the story?
I've never heard this before.
I have heard this, and like, I remember being like, how fucking big.
And he had a big blue ox.
Was this guy?
Well, yeah, he had a big blue ox. I know who.
He had a
Paul
big ass
Bunyan
mitten,
is.
and it's now
Is
our
he not
land.
a Michigan guy? Like, why
I
else
don't
would he be
think
like
so.
the symbol of hatred between the two biggest universities of this great state?
Yeah, the Paul Bunyan Trophy.
All right. I'm hearing you. I understand.
My other thing.
Whoever wins that game gets Paul Bunyan.
But okay, so here's the thing though. I'm looking this up, and I just want, because I fact check these things.
You're
You can't
good, you're
just
good.
say shit on this fucking podcast. So
why can't we give misinformation? Other people do it.
So he has claims in Maine. He has claims in Canadian provinces. He has claims in the Great Lakes area. He has claims in Nebraska and Kansas. He has claims in California, Texas, Oklahoma, the Pacific Northwest, Alaska.
This dude found the whole country.
He does not have...
It doesn't tell you where he like originates from, though.
It seems like there's no origination. He is from like everywhere.
He just is.
Yeah.
My thing with Michigan, the Michigan Dogman. Thank you for bringing up the Michigan Dogman.
Sure.
Because I fucking love the Michigan Dogman. But what is this is going to be a tangent. I apologize. What is the difference between a legend and a cryptid?
So that's a great question. There is, as far as I suppose cryptid would be a better term for it, because a legend or a piece of folklore generally has a story attached.
Because like Paul Bunyan is a legend.
Right, but like
I don't think he's a cryptid.
That's fair, but I suppose you could, like, my thing is, okay, the Headless Horseman then is a cryptid, but the story is the legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Okay, so you would say, like, the
According
Headless
to
Horseman,
Google AI.
there is,
No, we're not doing that.
like, a chance of it existing. Because to me, that's what cryptids are.
Yeah, I mean, like, there are, so with the Michigan Dogman, for those of you who may or may not know, the Dogman is a canine-like animal, kind of a la Bigfoot, but with a face like a dog.
Right.
He is a creature who was allegedly witnessed in 1887. So to me, that puts him in legend territory, because we have a date, a general area where he was witnessed.
I think he goes under cryptid, though, because there are more than the one sighting, I thought.
There are, and but
and
that's
some
what
of them
I'm
are
saying.
hoaxes and stuff.
What I'm saying is it's both.
Yeah.
Like cryptid, like I don't think they're exclusive to one another because the Legend of
okay.
Sleepy Hollow has the headless horseman who is a cryptid. You know what I mean?
I see.
So I think
Cryptid is the creature.
yeah,
Legend is the story
is
itself.
the story. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I got you. I'm on the same page.
Because so according to what I'm reading on Wikipedia, which as we know is a very reliable source, but it links to like the actual source, which is Traveling Michigan's Sunset Coast. The first encounter occurred in Wexford County in 1887, where two lumberjacks saw a creature which they described having a man's body and a dog's head. Then they were spotted again in 1937. Lots of sightings in the 50s and the 90s.
And then Wisconsin also has the Beast of Bray Road.
Yes.
So I think some people think they might be the same creature.
Right.
Because Wisconsin, Michigan, for those who are not who are not map good, we are close states.
Yes. And then in 1987, Steve Cook, who is a disc jockey DJ from Traverse City, recorded a song called "The Legend," which was a huge April Fool's prank that listed a bunch of real and made up myths and legends from around North America, and one of those was the Dogman. So
cool.
Either way, my point is that I really enjoy the way that folklore spreads throughout the country, and I think that Sleepy Hollow is a prime example of the way that those legends can shape the way that you see a certain area.
I love that.
And I guess Paul Bunyan maybe,
So,
axed us into a shape of a mitten because he lost his mitten. And I'm really sad for him if that's the case. But he also could have done that with the Puget Sound in Seattle. So who knows?
So, are you ready for our superlatives?
I am ready for our superlatives.
Who is your favorite cryptid?
My favorite cryptid? It's embarrassing because it's stereotypical and it's Mothman.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I fucking love Mothman.
That's my favorite too. Own that shit.
Told you.
Mothman fan club. Mothman fan club.
We should go take a trip to the statue in New Jersey.
We should make shirts.
Let's do it.
It's not the first time on the podcast I've said Mothman fan club.
I believe that. Anyway, who would you save, Austin?
Mothman?
He's not in this one.
Shit. Okay. This might be a cop-out answer. No one.
Okay.
I thought everyone kind of deserved it.
That's probably fair. Yeah.
I'm thinking of the characters. Like, Emperor Palpatine deserved it. Dumbledore deserved it. Uncle Dursley deserved it.
I don't think he did.
Grace Van Dien didn't deserve it, but he asked for it.
Did you say Grace Van Dien?
I thought I said...
You said Grace.
I said Grace.
Yeah.
Oops. Casper Van Dien.
Chrissy didn't deserve it, actually.
No, she didn't.
She was trying to buy drugs. Drugs.
That's how
Don't
Vecna
do drugs,
gets
kids.
you. I don't like this.
Stop.
But, sorry, Casper Van Dien. I don't think he deserved it, but he asked for it, right?
That's fair. He got in the way.
He could have easily listened to Ichabod Crane, who was like, he's not after you, fool.
Yeah.
And he was like, I shall have my vengeance tonight. For tonight we dine in hell. That was a different movie.
That was a different movie.
But, comment if you know what movie I was referencing. Like and subscribe.
Okay, we're going to move on.
I'm going to unsubscribe. I know.
That was mean.
I'm joking.
He just said he was going to unsubscribe. That's mean.
In fairness, I follow on Spotify, and you don't subscribe there, you follow. So what I said meant nothing.
Buddy.
We have to
How?
find a new producer. He sucks this episode.
So, if you're listening and you ever want to produce a podcast, we offer no benefits, no pay.
In fact, they'll make you do it after work and other work.
But I'll bring margaritas if it's a national holiday.
That's true. He will. So who would I save? I'll ask
Yeah,
myself.
who would he? I was getting there.
I would save Magistrate Philippe's. I don't think he deserves this. He felt very guilty, and he was just trying to do the right thing.
Was that Emperor Palpatine?
No, that was Vernon Dursley.
Oh, I liked him.
He was just like, I'm gonna keep everybody's secret because that's my job. Like, I don't know. He's just trying his best. That's how I feel. What was your favorite scare?
My favorite scare, I like the scene where he goes into that family's house.
That's
I
mine
referenced
as
it
well.
earlier.
That's mine
Okay,
as well.
we could just talk about the scene then. So it's our favorite scare. He's violent.
It's horrifying.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. You think so? For reference, he goes in and he kills the dad, and then the mom goes and hides her little, like, probably 1-year-old, maybe 1.5-year-old son in the floorboards, and he then brutally murders the mom, starts to walk out, and he hears his breath.
He
hears
just
the baby's
senses the
breath.
kid, yeah.
And he goes in and he goes back in, and you don't really even see the murder, but you see the floorboard get ripped up and the kid get ripped out.
And the kid's like, ah!
And it's so sad. Poor baby.
I didn't know Tim Burton had that dog in him.
Yeah, that was
Like,
brutal.
This was a refreshing Tim Burton watch for me.
I forgot that was in that because, I also was kind of like, Tim Burton, don't do that shit.
Yeah, and like he's covering Johnny Depp in all sorts of blood in this film, which I have not seen him do.
No.
I know he does it in a different film that I have not seen yet, but I'm very aware of it. And maybe we'll be covering it. I mean, if you'd pay attention to the Instagram, you already know we are.
Yeah, we are.
But
we're doing
still.
that.
Still, I like that scene a lot. I thought it was excellently composed. I thought the tension was great. And I like a bad guy sometimes. I like watching bad guys on my movies. So, who is your Tony Todd Award for movie MVP?
I said Miranda Richardson. She plays Lady Van Tassel. She plays the witch. I think she did such an excellent job. I like her as a baddie. I like her as a villain. I think she's really good.
I like that answer.
What about you?
My heart says Christopher Lee on principle, but Christopher Lee is only in this for like 2 seconds.
That's true.
Before the opening titles, where I think he's credited, but he don't show up after the opening titles. So it's like, fine, okay. But I'm actually going to give it to Danny Elfman.
That's fair. Yeah.
I heard
Side
Danny
note.
Elfman had to go into surgery after this film.
Oh, really? For what?
Because he had to carry this entire film on his back.
I fell for it. That's on me.
But I think that transitions us into the next superlative. You asked me.
Is the score better than Jaws?
No.
No.
But it is a pretty fun score that I was digging it.
Yes. So Danny Elfman, if you don't know, is an icon.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
He works with Tim Burton a lot.
We all have our flaws.
Well, he's done like, oh my gosh. You
guys know who Danny Elfman is.
First of all, if you listen to the score in this movie, you're going to be like, yeah, I know Danny Elfman. Like, I know who this fucking guy is, right? So, things that he has done, as we said, a lot of Tim Burton movies. He started out actually because he was a member of the band Oingo Boingo.
Yeah, he was.
And because Tim Burton was a fan of Oingo Boingo, he asked him to write the score for Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So that's how he got started doing film scores. But he also has done, outside of obviously like Beetlejuice and the Edward Scissorhands, Batman Returns, like all of those
Nightmare
Tim Burton's.
Before Christmas,
Nightmare
I
Before
think is a very
Christmas.
famous
Yes.
Danny Elfman score.
He also has done like the music for Scrooged, the Bill Murray movie.
That's the first one you go with?
I like that one.
It's a great one, don't get me wrong, but I was expecting you to say, you know, the Spider-Man trilogy.
Well, I was getting there. I was going in like chronological.
I thought you were going in like in great impact order.
Well, I was trying to go in like great impact order, but like also chronological. He did Men in Black. He did you know what? Now I'm just gonna skip him. He did the 50 Shades films. If you wondered. But no, he scored Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, and and themes from Spider-Man 3, which was scored by Christopher Young. And then his theme was incorporated into Spider-Man No Way Home by Michael Giacchino.
Which is funny because Michael Giacchino's themes for Doctor Strange was incorporated into Danny Elfman's score for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yes.
Which was directed by Sam Raimi.
Yes.
He did the 2010 Joe Johnston The Wolfman.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He did The Simpsons.
Yeah.
The main theme, the bum 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 bum.
That's actually like probably ironically his most famous piece, but like that's not the one people know him as.
Yeah, I think you're right.
like people are not listening to that and being like, that's Danny Elfman, but that's probably the most famous one. Like,
because that is probably the most famous
recognizable
TV show ever, other than like
at least theme wise.
Cheers.
I don't know, man. I think The Simpsons might be the most recognized television show of all time.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Let us know what you guys think in the comments. Like and subscribe.
He did the Mission Impossible movie. Which
but that one he like incorporated themes from the
TV,
but still
that
is a good score. The Brian De Palma Mission Impossible.
He scored that, which that movie I bring up because that stars somebody who will come back up later this month.
Who? So anyways, Danny Elfman.
I don't know if you're being serious. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I'm going to be honest. I stopped paying attention when I zoned out.
You know your mic's not on, right? So.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Okay, I'm going to kill myself.
So we're going to cruise on to the next.
So a fine addition to our collection. I assume you do not already own this film, but would it be something that you would buy? I feel like I know the answer.
I mean...
If you were gonna own a Tim Burton movie, would this be it?
It would be Beetlejuice, and I think I own Beetlejuice.
That's fair.
And then it would be Beetlejuice, which I do not own yet. But if I had a couple bucks to spare and it was right there, I wouldn't go out of my way for this one. But like if someone gifted it to me, I wouldn't be like, no, thank you. Well, I wouldn't be like that for any movie, actually.
I was gonna say that's crazy.
But I mean, if the circumstances were right, I wouldn't be opposed to owning it. But I'm not gonna go out of my way for like I need to go out of my way to get ginger snaps. I still have not gotten ginger snaps.
Yeah.
I need to right this wrong.
Ask me if I would own this film, please.
So, Lisa, would you own this film?
I would. Here's the problem. Is this month, this is going to be a really boring one because if it's gothic horror, I want to have it in my collection. So it's going to be a yes.
I might be interesting this month.
That's cool.
But not today.
Not today.
Not today.
So, hey, you got your Letterboxd review pulled up, or would you like me to go first?
Do you have yours pulled up already?
Yeah, because I write it on my show notes.
Well...
So I'll go.
Have it.
Okay, never mind.
Do you want to go first?
Ladies first.
Okay. I'm going first. I watched this April 23rd, 2025.
That's my birthday.
I watched it for you.
Yeah.
It's all for you, Damien. I gave this 3 stars.
Okay.
Which I think is pretty high.
For you and Tim Burton? Yeah.
My review is, I don't really care for Tim Burton films, but I do love me buckets of blood, so it evens out.
That's fair. It's a solid one.
I'm proud of that one. But no one liked it, and this is why I die. How about you?
So my review is a little more generous, but this is where my controversy with Tim Burton comes in. I rated this 4 stars. And my review was Tim Burton live action, love. Animated?
I agree with half of that.
Is it the part?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, important question for you.
Yeah.
Are there any supernatural alumni?
So this is a new superlative that we've decided to add, and we added it at the worst time because so far there's been none. But there will be. So for this one, supernatural alumni, there are none.
I find that a little surprising.
Just so you are understanding, by supernatural, we do mean the TV show that went on for 5 seasons too long. That's the one we're talking about. We're not just saying, like, are there any people in this movie who also have supernatural powers? That I cannot speak to, and I do not know.
I can. It was Christopher Lee.
Okay.
Let's be real.
That's fair.
That dude was in a metal band.
That's real.
And he has a really good cover of My Way. I'm not even shitting you right now.
Are you serious?
It's a metal cover of My Way, and it's fucking awesome.
Okay, well, I'm going to be looking that up after this episode. By after this episode, I mean I'm literally physically looking it up right now.
That is my... If you take... Everyone listening, if you take anything away from this episode, listen to the metal My Way cover by Christopher Lee. Because that dude 100%ed life and then gold starred all the side quests.
I need you all to know that this is from an album called A Heavy Metal Christmas 2, and it has 2 songs on it, and it's My Way and a song called Jingle Hell.
Christopher Lee might be one of the greatest people who ever lived.
That's
and
fair.
That might be an understatement.
It's fair.
So if you were in The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, would you die?
I'm not wealthy enough to be killed, but I am nosy enough. So I would end up like the Killians for sure.
Very fair.
What about you, Austin? Would you die?
I'm going to say no. I'll tell you why.
I'd love to hear it.
Because I am not important.
That's really sad, Austin. Do we need to talk about this?
Comment if you think Austin's important. Like and subscribe.
So thank you everyone for listening. I hope that you guys are enjoying Gothic Horror Month, Macabre May. Do you want to give a hint to what we're doing next week?
Yes. So if you really enjoyed this episode and you really enjoyed, the start to our Gothic Horror Month, Macabre May, join us next time for a very special interview.
Ooh, I like that. And this isn't Gothic Horror, but if you like creature features, my latest short film, Spider, is now on YouTube. You can find it on the Would You Die YouTube channel, along with my other horror short films, including Ice Scream and The Blood Witch, which I don't really do Gothic horror. I think The Blood Witch might be the closest.
That's, definitely true. But, definitely super exciting that Spider's finally out.
Thank you.
Really pumped for you, man.
And yes, you can find me at Austin M. Torres at basically all the social medias.
You can find me at Whimsawillow on all the social medias.
And the whole show, Would You Die Show, find us on Insta, find us on Facebook, find us on Tweds, TikTok that I never really use, but we're there.
But it's there.
Patreon. Sign up for a Patreon. We're working on a bunch of fun stuff. $3 a month. Don't get you that much right now, but it will.
We have so many things coming down the pipeline on our Patreon.
It'll get you so much in the near future.
I'm really excited. Yeah, it's going to be great.
This show is produced by our very own Jeremy Lippitt.
Not for very much longer.
Oh, shit. Meeting soon?
People have off days, okay?
Our music is composed by my dear friend Josie Palmer. Our branding and social media posts are designed by Alec of Crosshook Creative. I'm Austin Torres.
And I'm Anneliese and I.
Try not to die.